So here it is. The universe, the macro picture. The universe is an infinite singularity, as I have said before. Imagine a hyperdimensional sphere with infinite radius. That means it extends forever, and it never ends. It extends not in 3 dimensions, not in 4 dimensions, in an infinite number of dimensions. Of course, it doesn't even look like a sphere, because a sphere has a finite radius. What does a sphere with an infinite radius look like? Well, actually, it looks identical to a sphere with a 0 radius. So in a sense, this sphere is literally nothing. But at the same time, it's everything. This sphere contains inside of it every possibility, all possible pasts, presents, and futures happening simultaneously at once. Not inside of time and not inside of space, because those are within this sphere that I'm talking about. This sphere is an unlimited field of consciousness. This field is self-aware, sentient, alive, intelligent, unlimited, all-loving, and creative. This field is, of course, God, as religions have talked about for thousands of years, as people have speculated about, but you can become directly conscious that this is the case. You don't need to speculate or theorize about it or take it as dogma. This field subdivided itself into an infinite number of parts. Why did it do this? Because there is no distinction between a division and a unity. So this sphere, since it's eternal and has existed outside of time forever, already contained within itself all possible subdivisions. Because this sphere is absolute infinity, an infinite singularity, it is one. There's only one of them in existence. There can only be one because this is reality. There is only one reality. Within this reality are an infinite number of sub-realities, but the ultimate overarching encapsulating reality is one. And that turns out to be a very crucial point to understanding the purpose of the whole universe. Because if you assume that there's something outside the universe, you're not getting it. There can't be anything outside of it because it has an infinite radius. So it includes every possible space where there could be something else. It includes every possible dimension where there might be something else. You see that? So because it's one, it's radically one, because it's so total. There is nothing outside of itself and no one outside of itself. And so there's only one thing that this sphere can do. All it can do for eternity is explore itself and be itself. This sphere, remember, don't think of it as a dumb physical object. Think of it as a sentient field of consciousness. It's a mind. It's a universal mind, which is able to imagine and think. This sphere has a desire. It can desire. It wants to know itself. And it wants to be itself. Of course, just for it to be, it has to be itself, just to be. But it also wants to know itself. And as it turns out, because it's one, there's no distinction between knowing and being. And it cannot be itself or know itself, because being and knowing are really the same thing, unless it lives through itself. It needs to live through every single possibility of itself in order to simply be itself. So what this singularity does in its infinite wisdom is it creates and sends down probes into itself. So imagine this sphere sending probes inside of itself to look into itself to see what it is, because otherwise, without these probes, it can't really know what it is. So what's happening is that the universe is trying to see its own insides from every possible perspective. And all there are in the universe are perspectives. There is nothing but perspectives. But there's an infinite number of these perspectives. And so for the universe to be what it is, it has to explore all of those perspectives. And when it completes doing that, then it will complete its own existence. In this way, the universe bees itself, knows itself, experiences itself, and creates itself, because all of these are actually one. To be itself, it must create itself. To know itself, it must experience itself. So being, knowing, experience, and creation all turn out to be the same thing. So you might also think of it like this. If this is a giant mind which can think up anything, it can imagine anything, it can imagine dreams to infinity. Any number of dreams it can imagine. So imagine that this mind, in order to realize itself as what it is and to realize its full potential as an infinite mind, what it must do is it must literally think through every possible thought that can be thought and every possible dream that can be imagined. And so, of course, it goes about doing this. It has forever to do it because time itself is something that it dreams up. Space itself is something that it dreams up, amongst a million other things that it dreams up. So this mind or this universe has trillions of sentient beings in it, all of which are its probes. They're not apart from it. They're not separate from it. They are it. They are like tunnels that run through the interstices of this hypersphere. And your human life, this thing that's happening right now that you're conscious of, this is one of those probes. And so what your life is from God's perspective, from the absolute, the ultimate perspective, from the highest, biggest picture perspective, is that God is using your body and your life to give itself a colonoscopy, to look inside of its own asshole to see what's in there. That's your life. Ta-da! That's what you're doing here. You are God giving itself a colonoscopy. And that's what every creature is. Because without you, you see, God could not know what it is. So you are a essential, fundamental, irreducible part of God. You are, of course, also the whole of God itself. Because God is nothing but the sum total of all of its infinite parts. And you are one of those parts. And you are all of those parts. But right now, you're only conscious that you're one of those parts. So, let's summarize here. What is the point of the universe? The point of the universe, I'm going to phrase it here and frame it for you in maybe 8 different ways. So these are all basically the same thing. We're talking about the same thing, but from different perspectives. So one way we could phrase it is that the point of the universe is itself. Because there's nothing outside of itself because it's one. So what's the point? The point is it. This is the point. Being is its own point. Another way to phrase it is that the point is for God to simply be itself. Another way to phrase it is that the point is to experience all the parts and the whole, because you can't know the whole without experiencing all the parts. Another way to phrase it is that it's for God to experience being a creator. See, fundamentally, God is a creator. It's a creative capacity. It's an infinite creative capacity, so it creates everything. It's like a fountain that just spews out creativity. And so it does so for eternity to infinity, creating everything and then delighting in its own creation. And through this process, God actualizes itself as a creator. Another way to phrase it is that the point of the universe is God realization. It's for God to awaken to its self. It's for God to experience its own infinite magnitude. Because God is a marvelous thing, and it's epic, and it's huge. It's the biggest thing that exists. So how does it realize its own enormity? Through this process called life. That's how.